Chapter 13 of Billie Bradley at Treasure Cove by Janet D. Wheeler. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. A great ball game. It had been far from Billie Bradley's intention to broadcast the story of Amanda's treachery. She determined to say nothing about it herself, and even wrung from her friends a reluctant promise to maintain silence on the subject. But in some mysterious manner the incident leaked out. Perhaps Ben Halcombe told the story to his cousin, and Miss Pauline took it to Miss Walters. However that may be, the fact remains that Amanda Peabody was summoned to Miss Walters' office one day, and when she came forth she was a very much chastened girl. A few days later, word went about that Amanda had resigned from the tennis team. "She will hold that up against me, too," Billie said, when this word was brought to her. "Whatever happens to Amanda is my fault." "Even when it isn't," Laura Jordan finished, with a giggle. "Just the same, I'm glad to see Amanda punished for that bit of trickery," Vi said. "She deserved it, and more." The next day the girls received a visit from Chet Bradley and Teddy Jordan. Only relatives were permitted to visit the girls at Three Towers Hall. Poor Ferd Stowing, who had wanted to accompany his chums, found himself excluded by this ruling. "We want you to come over to Boxton for the ball game," said Chet, as soon as Billie and Laura entered the reception room. "There'll be eats afterward in the gym and dancing," Teddy said. "About the last spree we'll have before vacation." Of course the girls assented happily, for the affairs at Boxton were always pleasant ones. After they had chatted for a while about school events, Billie spoke of Ben Halcombe and his story of buried treasure. The instant and avid attention of the boys was flattering. In a low tone, Billie told all that she had heard from the old sailor, including his confession of poverty and his need of financial aid. "This looks like our meet," cried Teddy eagerly. "When do we start?" added Chet. After that they plied Billie with questions until she was out of breath answering them. Chet and Teddy were all for seeing Ben Halcombe at once, and having a heart-to-heart talk with him. But the teacher in charge appeared at the moment, warning the boys that they had already exceeded the visiting limit. "I suppose we've got to go," said Teddy reluctantly. "But remember, if you girls decide to go on a treasure hunt, count us in." "Every time," added Chet fervently. The girls carried the news of the invitation to Vi, who, of course, was included. "We can't wear regular party dresses," said Billie, "because both the game and the dance will be in the afternoon." "I don't see why they can't hold the dance in the evening," grumbled Laura. "We don't have time for much fun after the game." "Never mind. Think of all the fun we are going to have this summer." Billie held one of her prettiest afternoon dresses, a blue georgette, trimmed with narrow bands of velvet, before her and studied the effect in the mirror. "Girls, if we don't go on our treasure hunt, I'll never get over the disappointment." The next day was clear and warm, perfect for that time of year. Several other girls from Three Towers Hall had been invited to the festivities at the Boxton Military Academy. They all went down to the boathouse together, half a dozen of them, looking like flowers in their pretty, varicolored dresses. Neither Rose nor Connie had been invited, an oversight which troubled Billie and her three chums considerably. "We'll have to find a couple of nice boys for Connie and Rose, and see that they are invited next time," Billie said. "I feel mean going off for a day's fun without them." "We'll have to set Teddy and Chet to work on that problem," Laura said. "What good are brothers, anyway, if they can't supply all the boys we need?" The little flotilla of canoes was met on the opposite shore by the boys from the academy. As the girls disembarked, looking more than ever like flowers against the somber hues of the boys' uniforms, there was a concerted rush for them, each boy picking out his partner for the day. Chet regarded Laura in open admiration. "Say, you look great in pink," he said boyishly, "and your hair looks nice, too. Sort of different. What did you do to it?" Laura giggled. "Combed it for a change, and slicked it down a little. Same old haircut, though. Do stop goggling at me, Chet. You look silly." "Oh, very well," said the boy, offended. "If you don't like me to say you look great." Meanwhile, Teddy was saying to Billie, "There isn't a girl here can touch you for looks, Billie Bradley. I can see I'm going to have a tough job holding on to dances after the game." All the time, Ferd Stowing was saying practically the same thing to Vi, who really did look stunning in a straight little golden frock the color of the first spring crocuses. The boys had just time to seat the girls in the grandstand before dashing to the gymnasium to change into their baseball suits. "See you some more later," they cried, and were gone. The game the girls were about to witness was the most important of the season for Boxton. In it they were to meet their bitter rivals and most dangerous opponents, the boys from Claxton Hall. Every year these two teams fought it out for baseball supremacy. Up to the last 2 or 3 years, the teams had seemed very evenly matched. Then Boxton began to slip, and for 2 seasons had been forced to accept defeat at the hands of their rival. Now it seemed that luck was about to change. While the two teams were fairly evenly matched in most ways, it was generally conceded that Boxton's battery was the stronger of the two. Teddy Jordan, first on the list of batting stars, had done some splendid work for Boxton, whereas Chet, in the pitcher's box, was a tough nut for any team to crack. "The boys will never get over it if they don't win today," Vi said. "Every time I've seen Ferd, he's talked of nothing but the battle with Claxton. It means just as much to him as it does to Chet and Teddy, even if he is only a substitute." "Here they come now," cried Laura. "Oh, Billie, don't they look perfectly sweet?" A boy fan seated in front of Laura turned around and grinned. Billie and Vi giggled. "Well, I don't care, they do," contended Laura, flushing. "And what's more, I'd be perfectly willing to say it to their faces." "Go ahead," said Billie, happily munching peanuts. "I'm quite sure Chet, at least, won't mind." But when the boys lined up on the diamond for the first half of the first inning, all frivolity was put aside. The girls settled down to watch the struggle for supremacy between the two teams that fought with all the grim purpose of major leaguers. Inning after inning passed without a score being chalked up for either side. The pitchers on both teams were doing masterly work. Again and again the boys at the bat swung at deceptive balls, missed, and struck out. It was in the 6th inning that the first score was made, a homer for Claxton. 1-0, favor of Claxton, Laura said under her breath, and only 3 innings left. "I don't think our boys can hope to more than tie the score," Billie admitted. "If they do that," added Vi, so softly that no one heard her but Billie, who was sitting quite close to her elbow. But the girls underrated the Boxton team. That 1 run for the enemy put Boxton on its mettle. In the 7th they tied it, making the score 1-1. By this time the spectators in grandstand and bleachers could scarcely sit still. Cries of "down in front" could be heard on all sides. Still the boys and girls bobbed up, calling encouragement to individual players or joining in the school yells. During the 8th inning, excitement rose to fever heat. During the first half, Boxton made a desperate bid for the 1 run needed for victory, but Claxton held them down, retiring 2 men on fouls, striking out a third. And in the last half of the 8th, Boxton, in its turn, held their adversaries to the 1 run. "Such excitement!" cried Laura at the beginning of the 9th. In moments of excitement, she had clutched her fair hair with both hands until it stood out all about her head like a rather disorderly halo. I'll never be the same again." "Your hair won't if you don't stop clutching at it," retorted Vi, prosaically. "Look, here come the boys." "The beginning of the 9th," murmured Billie, "and the score a tie. This is what Miss Halcombe calls the crucial test." "Teddy's at bat," cried Laura. "Now, watch. He's bound to hit a homer." Claxton's pitcher, Neil Brennan, wound up slowly, sent a beautiful ball over the plate. A ball that curved maddeningly and dropped as Teddy swung at it. "Strike!" cried the umpire. A second ball, a fast one, whizzed wide of the plate. Teddy did not swing at it. "1 ball," sang the umpire. The third ball Teddy caught on the tip of his bat and knocked into the grandstand for a foul. The fourth connected solidly with his bat and sailed into the air for what seemed like a homer. The Boxton supporters were on their feet, yelling madly. An outfielder for Claxton ran backward for the ball, making an astounding leap into the air, caught and fumbled it, and then sent it to the catcher just as Teddy slid into third base. Now it was the turn of the Claxton supporters to roar their admiration of a teammate's prowess. "That hit of Teddy's looked like a sure enough homer," sighed Billy. "It should have been," returned Laura. "I'd like to choke that outfielder." "Still, we've a man on third and two more still to bat," Vi reminded her. "We may bring in that winning run yet." They did. It was a short hit, made by the third man at bat, but it was sufficient to bring one man home. Boxton supporters broke into a concerted roar as the scoreboard read, "Boxton 2, Claxton 1." "The last half of the last inning," cried Laura, gripping her tormented hair with both hands. "It would be just like Claxton to score now at the last minute. They may even bring in 2 runs and beat us." "Can't be done," said Billy. However, she was by no means as confident as she seemed. Claxton was noted for its ability to turn a seeming defeat into a last-minute victory, and in this game with Boxton they seemed determined to justify their reputation. Despite the utmost efforts of the home team, Claxton succeeded in getting 3 bases full with one man still to bat. "One good hit and good-bye ball game," groaned Vi. "It's up to Chet to hold 'em," murmured Billy. "If only he can," came from Laura. Chet stepped into the box. He rolled the ball between his cupped hands for a moment, drew back his arm and let fly. It was a swift ball, perfectly placed, cutting the plate in half. The man behind the bat swung at it. Missed. "Strike 1," called the umpire. "That's right. Kill him, Chet," shouted Laura. "Strike him out." But no one heard her because of the constant roar that went up from the stands. Everyone was standing now, hands waving, shouting, half mad with excitement. Chet wound up carefully, but the ball curved too much, went wide of the plate. "Ball 1." The next ball was a swift one, cutting the plate in half. The batter struck at it, missed. "Strike 2." The Boxton supporters were going mad. "Eat 'em up, Chet." "Strike 'em out." "Attaboy, Chet." But the next 2 were called balls by the umpire. Was Chet's control beginning to break? "One more ball," groaned Billy, clenching her hands, "and Chet will walk his man home. Stiffen up, Chet. Stiffen up." Chet took his time on the next one. As he wound up slowly, the grandstand groaned in suspense. A strike meant victory, a ball, defeat, and defeat or victory depended upon Chet Bradley. Billy was trembling. Laura had stopped pulling at her hair and stood motionless, hands clenched at her sides. The ball, it came over slowly, directly over the plate, such an easy one to strike. Evidently the Batman thought so. He swung at it with force enough to whirl him half around in the box, then stood staring foolishly at the end of his bat. That ball, that tantalizing ball, had dropped just the fraction of an inch, curving outward as it dropped, and was now safe in the catcher's mitt. Chet had struck his man out. Boxton had won. End of chapter 13.